Hi everyone, and very welcome back to yet another episode of Captains Speaking. As always, my name is Petter Hörnfeldt, and together with me I have...
Ben Watts. Welcome everybody. Petter, how are you?
I am awesome. Not quite as awesome as I could be, because again, I've started going back to CrossFit after my tennis elbow has given in a little bit, and now I am being punished for it. But today I tried something new. My wife tricked me into going to Pilates.
Ooh.
Which turned out to be really, really nice, actually, especially when you compare it, like the contrast with CrossFit, which is a lot of, lifting weights and a lot of heavy work with your body. Pilates was a little bit more gentle, but it still hurts.
Yeah, I've never tried it. Don't know much about it, if I'm honest. But yeah.
To be honest, I have started to look at that and yoga just because I recognize that I am stiff as a board. And I need doing heavy exercising doesn't necessarily help with that. Like you get stronger for sure, but you do not get more flexible. And I feel like now I'm turning 44 in a couple of weeks, and I need to do everything that I can do in order to kind of keep the mobility up.
Yeah, I could for sure sympathize. I know from riding when I'm out, if I've had a heavy session on the bike, the importance of stretching afterwards, it makes a difference between the next day being grim, where like you feel like an old man trying to get off the sofa, or just being normal. And if you can just stretch out those muscles, it makes a hell of a difference.
Yeah, no, and I feel that. So I thought when my wife said, "I'm going to try out Pilates, do you want to come?" And I said, "Yeah, why not? Absolutely." Yeah. And it was really, really nice. It was really a beginner session. I figured that they can probably become a lot more hardcore than it was. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it now. So it's yes, I am feeling good is what I wanted to say.
Good. So Petter's either awesome or just a little bit less awesome. That's
slightly below too awesome. What about you?
I'm good. Yeah, busy as always. Been a busy week of flying this week. A little bit of sim, but mainly flying. It's just been punctuated with delays this week. That kind of seems to be the theme of my week, of just delays through no fault of our own or anything like that. It's just the way things are out there at the moment. I mean, there's just one thing or another.
That's been the whole summer of 2025, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, this week I think it's probably been my worst week with regards to just delays everywhere for a variety of reasons, whether it's weather-related, problems with the airports, whatever it might be. But it just hit this week. I
remember that feeling of like as a pilot. For those of you listening out there, we are kind of always working against the clock. Like you're, I don't know, out of all of the instruments you have in the cockpit, you're looking at the clock, especially during the turnarounds, probably the most. And you're working on catching up minutes and seconds. Like you're working, you're doing your briefing efficiently, you're setting up, you're doing your paperwork efficiently, you're ready. We tend to have 25-minute turnarounds in my old airline, and you really have to work to do that. And then you push, and then you get up in the air, and you try to get a shortcut, and it cuts off 30 seconds. And then, after having spent the whole day chasing seconds like that, you suddenly get like a tech delay or an ATC delay. And now it's sort of like, that's going to take 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And all of that work that you have spent, it just goes down the drain.
Oh, yeah. There's a saying, isn't there? What's the most dangerous instrument in the flight deck? And potentially it's the clock.
It's the clock, for sure.
It's where you're focused on that so much. And I mean, we had that the other day where you work so hard. I mean, the mantra we have is safety, efficiency, punctuality, but in that order. It's when people mix that order up, things go wrong. But it's so easy, if you're not careful, to let that clock go, we've got 1 minute left until our 25-minute turnaround is up, or our slot, or whatever it might be. And you think, if you're not careful, crews will just rush. They'll miss things, and that's how things can happen. Yeah. So you've got to slow it down. But we've been working efficiently throughout the day, and we've had this slot coming up, and we push back on time. Great, amazing job. And then the pushback bar that connects the tractor to the aircraft snapped. The shear pin snapped.
Yeah.
And we just stopped. So we're like, we had to reset the parking brake. Ground crew were like, the tow bar snapped, we're going to have to find another one. So we now just have to sit there and wait. And that's the theme of the day, isn't it? It's just the saying, hurry up and wait.
Have you noticed as well that when one thing starts to go wrong,
Yeah.
several other things tend to line up. Like, I
Yeah.
know as a human, we are built to try to find patterns where there are no patterns, but I can assure you that you have shit days. And when you have a shit day, it's completely unrelated things that are going
Yeah.
wrong. It's
Nothing's.
like it's a tow bar that snaps for no particular reason, but just happens to snap on the one sector that you have a slot. And for those of you out there, a slot,
Yeah.
you have a window where we have to take off. And if we don't take off within that window, which is typically what, 5 minutes before, 10 minutes after, or something
Yep.
like
Yep.
that, you have that kind of like slot area that you have to take on in time. And if you don't, then you miss your time to go, and you might be looking at hours until you get the next, depending on what the reason for that slot is.
Yes.
But I remember having that, and then like bird strikes, and then like a a sick passenger,
Yeah.
and something like it has nothing to do. It's not correlated like there's a tech delay that causes another tech delay. No. These are random things that just happen to come on one single day.
It's uncanny. And they always, I don't know about you, but I mean, when I'm training, these kind of days tend to happen, I find, on command upgrade training days, which is amazing for the student because they're getting such value seeing this stuff in a training environment. When I was doing a command upgrade training day yesterday, and for those of you, just to make that clear, command upgrade training is where we're taking a senior first officer who's gone through huge amounts of selection and training and to get to the point where they're now flying on the aircraft in the left-hand seat, being trained to manage this operation as a commander of an aircraft. And so I was sitting in the right seat training this guy who's excellent. And it was a day just like you explained. And it was separate to the tow bar day, but we had 3 separate tech issues. We had a 2-hour slot because the radar in at destination, the ground radar in Porto, had failed, and it was low visibility, which meant they had to have like 1 aircraft moving at a time. We had all sorts going on. We had passengers kicking off, bird strike, tech
You
problems.
see, there's always a bird strike in there somewhere.
It's always a
It's
random bird has
always
to
a
get
bird.
in the way.
No, but what you're saying is true, because this is a really bad day to be a pilot, because it's a lot of work. It requires a lot of workload, and we have to concentrate to make sure we don't make any mistakes or rush or do anything like that. But for a command upgrade student, this is gold, because if they don't get to do this together with a senior training captain that can give them hints on how to think, they're going to have to do this for the first time themselves when they are released in the left seat and have no one to ask. Well, obviously they have the rest of the crew, but they are ultimately the ones that are responsible then. So if what you pray for or what you should be praying for as a command upgrade student is as hard of a line training as you can possibly get.
Yep, for sure. It's the old, you're as an FO, if something's going wrong, you can look left and you've got the captain to help you. But when you're in the left seat as a captain, if you look left, all you're seeing is your reflection back in the mirror. It's all on you.
I always use that one. I think because it's a great saying.
Yeah.
And this is actually, it's quite funny, because when people do get their command, right? When they've gone through the command training, and then you speak to someone who's just gotten the left seat, they're a new captain, and you ask them, how was your first week as a captain? They will always say, it was the worst week of my career. We had this, we had bird strikes, we had angry passengers, we had this and this and this. And it genuinely feels like that for them, right? They feel like, how come I get all of this on my first week as a captain? Now, in reality, they've had several of those weeks. They just haven't been the one who'd had to take all of the decisions. So what happens is that everyone's first week as a captain is the worst week. And then the second week is the second worst. And then it just, for some reason, becomes better as you get more experience and you've done this more times. But it is really fascinating to see how people react to it. Because when you're in the right seat, you are there doing the same things. You're seeing the same things. But there's always going to be that feeling of, the captain will decide. But when it's when people look at you, and it's a tricky thing that you have to decide on, it is a whole different ballgame.
It is, and it's funny when you strap into that left seat, how often do the command upgrade students go, oh, my capacity just kind of goes at first, because I'm the reality of being in that left seat now as a captain just feels different, psychologically feels different, and that takes up capacity. And they'll tell you that I remember walking back with multiple command upgrade students, or meeting students that have now passed, and you're walking back to the car park, you bump into them. Oh, how's it going? You know,
We should mention that passed means that they have passed their line check. They're not passed on.
Jeez. Yeah, that would be an interesting conversation, wouldn't it? Yeah, they must have had a really bad week.
It's a whole different type of podcast.
Yeah, that's a horrible week. Yeah, not that one. No, they've passed their final command check. Yeah, that's pretty worth making clear. But they'll come and turn to you and go, it's a different job. It's a different job flying in the left seat.
No, it's a better job. Make no like it is a better job to be in the left seat, but it takes a while to feel like a better job.
It does. It takes a while to sort of settle in, and it's where you earn your money. And I had a previous day, the day before, funny enough, we got stuck down route because a baggage handler accidentally drove slightly into the side of our aircraft when we were boarding, put a bit of a dent in it, which is never a good sign. And like with everything in aviation, if it's your car, you'd look at it and go, I have to get that to the body shop.
A dent is a dent.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. Yeah. A dent is a dent.
A dent is a dent, and there's no if, buts, or maybes. If there's a dent, it needs to. Remember, the aircraft is pressurized. It's a pressurized can ultimately. Yeah. So if there's any kind of now weakness in that, it's dangerous, potentially catastrophic. So that aircraft will not fly until that gets properly looked at.
Even the smallest dents that we get, and I've seen some very small ones, they need to be evaluated by the engineering department. And sometimes I've even had it where we've had to measure it, send it into Boeing. Yeah. And Boeing's engineers have had to have a look at it. And they could decide that actually that aircraft can only fly without passengers back to base to be rectified. Yeah. So we take those things very seriously. So naturally, when this poor person who probably doesn't have a airside driving pass anymore did this, what happened?
Yeah, so it was okay. So I know instantly we're grounded. Typically, it was at a place where it was just a destination. There was no engineering support. It wasn't a base. So it was very much a phone call, liaising with maintenance control in our head office, who are excellent at doing this. We're sending pictures. They're liaising with local engineers. If there's any 737 type rated engineers that could come and actually have a look at this, that they could contract in. There was nobody. But one of the benefits of working for a very large airline is they have a lot of resources at their disposal. And what actually happened in the end was ops looked at the big picture and said, look, what we're going to do to minimize delay here, we're going to commission a spare crew at the nearest base, which was Naples. We've got a spare aircraft. They're going to fly that empty to where we were, which was about 20 minutes, half an hour. We're then going to get all the passengers onto that aircraft. We're going to fly that back to Stansted, and that poor crew have to hang around until that aircraft either gets fixed or can fly unpressurized back to Naples, I would imagine. But yeah, all in all, what could have been an overnight years ago turned into maybe an hour and a half delay.
That's amazing. I don't think that people understand the benefit of actually flying flying as a passenger with really large carriers, because the network they have, the chances they have, because things happen. That's the thing. We're talking about really, really complex machines with millions of parts, and we're also talking about a safety kind of ethos in the industry that does not allow for even the smallest risk.
Nope.
So what we do have is we have something called an MEL, which is a minimum equipment list, where certain components are allowed to be inoperative under certain conditions. So if things just go wrong, as in if something breaks, a system malfunctions, we can go into that and we can see, all right, we are allowed to fly with, for example, one air conditioning pack. Right, we're allowed to dispatch with that, following this procedure that we have to follow. So yeah, it's not like we get grounded for every single fault, but whenever there's something structural, be it a bird that impacts us that leaves a mark, or in this case, obviously a truck that drives into you have to make sure that everything's right. Anything that there's even the slightest inkling of a risk involved, then there is no risk, because the aircraft stops on the ground. And I know for passengers who are listening to this, you will obviously initially maybe not get that much information. The information that might go out is that there's a delay, we're holding the boarding, or worst case scenario, you have already boarded and something happened.
Yeah.
That happened to you?
Yeah, that was yesterday.
Yeah. That's the worst. But initially there will be because the reason that we don't give information immediately is because the information might change very quickly while we are talking to our maintenance control, for example. Something that we think is serious and they don't think is serious, then we have to liaise, what is the case, and then we will convert information.
Yeah.
But for passengers, it's going to be really frustrating because they don't really know, right?
No, it's such a pain. And when we're traveling as passengers, I always remind myself how frustrating it can be when you're delayed, because we're just flying in there, we're turning around and we're going back. But you've got to remember that every passenger going in there has probably been 3 or 4 hours in the making to get to that point.
Yep.
From leaving the house to going through the stress of security and passport control and paying outlandish prices for coffees at departure lounges. And yeah, they've put up with all of that, the crowds. And now you finally get on board an aircraft and you're told, we're grounded. It's annoying. It's frustrating. Of course it is. And it's frustrating for all of us. But I think the only way I can do it is to be honest and go, look, this is what's happened.
Yep.
This is why we can't go, because you don't want me to go with this problem. This is why we can't go, but this is what we're doing to rectify it. And generally people are pretty happy with that. They're like, yeah, I'm happy with that.
I've found that as well. I found that the more information, honest information that you give people, and I think we mentioned this before on the pod, but even if you don't have the information, that is still information.
Yeah.
As the captain of the flight, you are the one who have to deliver those messages. This is actually where having a uniform makes a big difference. I've noticed because I tend to actually sometimes go out and make if I have passengers on board, and I think that those passengers are going to have to stay on board and for a while and wait, I have at times gone out into the cabin and done the PA from the front station, right? And there's something with that uniform. There's something when they see the captain, they see the 4 stripes, they listen. And even if it's bad news, they tend to take it quite well, as long as you are upfront with it and you don't try to trick them in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, because people aren't stupid. I mean, I've seen passenger scenarios in different airlines where I've been a passenger in the back and there's clearly something wrong. You've got, a cowling up on an engine. There's engineers in high vises coming in and out the aircraft, and then they'll do a PA and say, oh, it's an air traffic control delay. You're like, dude.
No. You cannot do that. And what I found as well is if you don't do that, if you don't go out and give information, what's going to happen is that you're going to have these rumors starting.
Yep.
And they're going to go up and down the cabin. People have heard something, smelled something, or they saw some dude. And it's going to become it becomes like an urban legend within the aircraft. So you have to go out and you have to, head that straight on. And I've had passengers on board for hours. Like, I think my personal record is around 4 hours with passengers on board. Sometimes for slots, because the problem with slots is that if it's an air traffic control slot, I'm looking at you, France. If that's the case, then you don't really know when you are going to get your chance to go. And you might get it with a very short notice. And of course, you don't have the luxury then of being able to take the passengers off, get everyone back on board again, and go. So what you do is you keep passengers on board, you inform them about this, and say, we are talking to air traffic control all the time to get a new slot. And that might mean normally you get a slot that is like 3-4 hours away. And then you are putting a ready message in, which means that you're telling air traffic control that we are ready to go. And then they will assign you a better slot when they can, which means it can happen at any point. So you have the passengers on board and you just sit there, and every 15 to 20 minutes you go out and say, still no update, but it still works.
It does work, doesn't it? It definitely has a positive effect. I was training at that command upgrade student yesterday, and we had a 2-hour slot going down there because of this surface movement radar being US. And that was the point that we got across to. He was very much, every 15 minutes, going to do a PA, even if it is, listen, we haven't got any progress yet. We are still working behind the scenes to get a rerouting or whatever it might be. At least they're not being forgotten, and it's so valuable for them. So I think that's definitely a real positive to take away from that.
Yeah, and another thing that's super important as well to think about is to think, right, so where are we? Are we in Italy? Do we have someone who speaks Italian?
Yes.
Do we have someone in the crew who speaks Italian who can repeat the PAs back? Because I mean, obviously speaking English works quite well today in Europe, but you might still have quite a lot of people who will not speak English that well and will definitely not understand technical English.
No, and it was a problem that we actually had yesterday because obviously we're speaking and liaising with the cabin crew who are seeing it firsthand, and we're saying, how are the passengers? How's the temperature in the cabin? And they go, yeah, generally the passengers are okay, but there's a good handful that are a bit disgruntled. And it turns out when we're getting a bit more information that they didn't speak English and they didn't understand what was going on, which is why that they were disgruntled.
Of course.
So, and we didn't have any Portuguese speaking cabin crew. So unfortunately, it was kind of one of those things that we didn't really have that much control over. So it was frustrating, but we do what we do with it. But if you're a passenger sitting in the back, you're bored, you're in a departure lounge, you're going to say something.
Do you think you could use ChatGPT to do a PA in a situation?
Do a PA? I mean,
to write it in and have it translated and write and read it out, and basically saying it like, I am, it's the captain. I'm using this translator now to give you this message because we don't have anyone, and then put the message in.
Maybe with this new iPhone 17 that's just come out and how clever that looks. I mean, it's a possible. You've got to trust ChatGPT to be giving you something else because you have no idea what it's saying.
No, but I found that the translation part of it is actually excellent.
Is it very good?
It's very, very good. But of course, what I would be a little bit careful with is that people maybe don't want a captain who's using ChatGPT to be using that technology. I mean, you'd have to think like this because it's all psychology when it comes to this.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So maybe you don't want to be too innovative when it comes to these things. But this is something that I think the airlines should probably have some kind of think about, because it would be a fantastic tool to use for information if it's standardized, so you don't have people going rogue with it.
Even at a local level, if there was just one or two passengers that were really kind of uptight and angry and they didn't speak English, didn't understand, even to put it on for the cabin crew, for us to kind of write a message and put it on a phone so they can at least understand what's going on. I think as soon as people understand, the problems often go away. So there is potential good use for that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's one of the only good use cases I've seen for AI so far.
He's a skeptic.
We're going to have a little bit of discussion because I know you and I have a little bit of difference in opinion here. But taking care of passengers obviously is super important. And sitting back there for 3 hours. One other thing that I do, and I think I've mentioned this before, is I always keep the doors open.
Yeah.
I always, when I know that we're not going to move, closing the doors we can do in a second. It doesn't matter. So I always keep the doors open, both in the front and the back, and have the stairs attached if I can. Yeah. If I can't have the stairs attached because they're needed for other aircraft, I just have the front one open that we have our air stairs on, so you can have it open. Because that gives people the feeling that we're not moving. Yeah. And when they see that it's open, they don't feel trapped and they're not in the go mode.
Correct. Yeah, correct. The challenge that can happen with that is sometimes we'll do something called a push and hold, which we had to do pretty much most of the days this week, where your stand that you're parked on needs to be used by incoming aircraft. So you can't just sit there. So we had to, in that case, close the doors, start the engines, push back, taxi out to a remote part of the airport, and then shut down again, which we planned for from a fuel perspective. But then you're out on the airfield somewhere and you do have that kind of trapped in kind of sensation.
You could still open. And this depends on the airline. You could open and you can put the strap. I probably would open and put the air stairs out. I mean, we're talking if it's hours now.
Yeah.
If it's 15, 20 minutes, doesn't matter. But if you have a potential to wait for hours, I think that the psychological difference in seeing an exit and knowing that the door is open, so I don't even need to think that we're going, makes a big difference psychologically to people's mood, basically.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's certainly worth thinking about. But I think as passengers as well, I think if you go to an airport, you're going to be flying, particularly in the summer, you've got to go prepared. You've got to have the mindset that you're probably going to be delayed. And if you're not, then it's a bonus. And I think, a lot of us will have iPads, computers, phones, and you might want to be watching your favorite program, your sports, whatever it might be. And but if you're away, you might not have access to it. You might need a VPN.
And
very nicely.
As it happens, NordVPN is the sponsor of this episode.
No way.
Yeah. NordVPN is actually I'm using it a lot. I've mentioned that before. We use it for watching hockey because both me and my wife are big hockey fans. We use it obviously here on the channel when we're researching things. There's a lot of geo blocked content out there that you can't access from certain parts of the world, and for that NordVPN you just start it up. You put yourself in whatever position that you want to be, and it will then unlock that region for whatever content you have. So great for sports, great for content of different sorts. And I don't know, how do you use it?
Yeah, it's handy when you're out there. If you are stuck, at least you can whittle away the way by kind of, I want to access whatever it is. It's in the UK, for example. You're stuck somewhere else. You can move yourself virtually to the UK. NordVPN has 60 servers in 60 different countries. You can position yourself wherever you like there, unlock that geo-lock content, sit there and watch it. It's super fast, which is amazing, which is a bit I like about it. It's super quick.
And what I really like actually as well is the cyber security features they have. So they have this Threat Protection Pro feature, which basically stops you from opening up nefarious websites before you even load them, so your device will not be affected by it. They've gotten a lot of industry recognition for that feature, and it's available even if you don't use the VPN. So you don't need to have the VPN activated, you just need to activate that part, and it's there to save you. I think that's super, super good. And another thing that I really like, because I have kids, teenagers, and if you sign up for NordVPN, you can have up to 10 devices on the same login. So that's the whole family. Now, if you are interested in this, if this sounds good to you and you want to join as well, go to nordvpn.com/captain. That's nordvpn.com/captain. That will give you 4 extra months for free when you sign up for the 2-year deal. And they always have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you never risk anything by trying them out.
Oh, definitely worth trying.
Definitely. And another thing that you might want to think about when you're sitting there in the back watching your content is what you're watching your content on, because this is the main story today.
Good point.
Lithium batteries.
Lithium batteries. And it's worth pointing out here before we go any further that if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also listen to this as a podcast on Spotify or your favorite podcast server.
I'm laughing now because we work together with this brilliant guy called Navin, who reminds us before every single episode that you have to mention that you can listen to this podcast wherever you find your favorite podcast. We're on every single platform. And I always promise him, like, today I'm going to do it. And then we launch into something super interesting that we're going to talk about, and it just disappears.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's true. Yes, you can follow Spotify. We're there. We are also on all of the other platforms. So just look for Captain Speaking, and you'll find it, and you can listen to it.
Yeah.
Lithium batteries.
So, lithium batteries, aircraft fire. Why don't we like them?
Because they're terrifying. I mean, there are very few things out there in the modern world that terrifies me more than lithium batteries do. Lithium batteries, they're everywhere. They're in every single one of your devices because they have so much potential energy in them. Like, you can get so much energy into a lithium battery in a small area, which means that they're perfect for your telephone, for your tablet, for your e-reader, for your power bank, obviously. Basically, everything that you watch a screen from has a lithium battery in it. And it's the reason that I am afraid of them, the reason that I really, I love them, but I'm also afraid of them, is that if something goes wrong with these batteries, generally speaking, they're quite robust. Like, it's very rare that something happens to them. But if you break them, if you crush them, so for example, you drop them in a seat and you recline the seat and it cracks them, they become like, those glow sticks on festivals that you just crack and then all of a sudden they activate and they're really pretty. That, but in horror form.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lithium. So I was an ex-firefighter, right? I was not for long. I did it during my military service and then a year after that on the airport, an airport firefighter. And we used to talk about something called the triangle of fire, which is the 3 things that you need in order for a fire to sustain itself. So you'll have oxygen, you need fuel, and you need heat. Right? Those 3 things. If you have that, a fire can sustain itself. So generally speaking, when you have a fire fighting equipment of some sort, so a fire extinguisher, for example, it removes one of those things. And by removing one, the fire goes out. So halon, which is the gas that we're using still in a lot of aircraft, it's being phased out now because it's a really, really, really bad gas for almost everything. Do you remember what is it being replaced with? It's something
You've
like
got something called halotron,
halotron.
which is, don't ask me to pronounce the chemical names for it, but it's about that long,
Yeah, I
but
want you
apparently
to
nowhere
pronounce
near as bad.
I want
Yeah.
you to pronounce it. No, yeah. So basically, it's the same thing. What halon and halotron does is that it removes the oxygen. Right. So the heat is still going to be there, the fuel is still going to be there, but there's no oxygen, so the fire can't work. Then we also tend to have a water extinguisher on board, as silly as it sounds, and it removes the heat. You cool down, so you remove that component of it. But the problem with a lithium battery is that it can self-sustain itself. It has the heat, the fuel, and I don't know if it produces oxygen or if it just does not need oxygen to. Well, it has to in some way or form. But basically the process, the fire process, is self-contained inside of the battery fire.
Yeah.
So it just continues. You can get rid of the flames temporarily by using halon on it, but it will, as soon as you remove the halon, it will start again.
Yes. And the issue, obviously, this assumes that we know that fire on board an aircraft is probably the most frightening thing we can have.
Yeah.
We get to deal with all sorts of failures and problems on board an aircraft, but a fire is the one thing I think we all dread.
Yeah. No, there's no question about it. People ask me, like, wouldn't it be worse with a dual engine failure? No. Like, if I get to choose between a uncontrolled fire, we're not talking about
No.
a fire somewhere, but an uncontrolled fire in the cabin and a dual engine failure, I'll take dual engine failure every day.
Oh yeah, no brainer.
Yeah, and I'll get to that why. But why are we speaking about it now, Ben?
We're speaking about it now because the FAA have issued a safety bulletin regarding these lithium batteries and the awareness that we all need when we're dealing with these now, because these are getting more prevalent, and they're getting guidance out there to operators and passengers of what can be carried on board and how we need to be aware of this when we're traveling on board an aircraft.
Yeah. This is where you who are listening to this needs to really pay attention. All right. Because we have a stiff work ahead of us. The airlines, us who are, social media facing personalities within aviation, to educate people on this. So that people understand the risks involved. Because if you think about it, if you just sit back and think about how many individual things that you carry on yourself that has lithium batteries in it. If you think about that for a normal trip, I was doing this with you, Ben, before, and I came to 6 different pieces on me. Now, if you are in an aircraft with 200 passengers, that's 1,200 devices, right? So that's 1,200 devices that you might not know the origin of the battery. Yeah, you don't know the quality of, you don't know how long it's been serving. Maybe you don't know the quality. You definitely don't know the quality of the people around you and where they got there. Like, if you do what the rest of the world tends to do, which is buy the cheapest you can, it's not good, right? So, like, for example, I would never buy a second-rate battery from some place in China that I don't know. Like, I would always go for brands when it comes to this, not because they are necessarily better, but because they have been tested.
Yeah, we see that with the electric scooters, wasn't there? There was a phase of these cheap electric scooters from China, just spontaneously combusting in people's homes.
Yeah, and if you when you have listened to this or watched it, if you go and just Google lithium battery fire on airplane, you're going to get some really scary stuff, because when they get a so-called thermal runaway, which is what happens, it happens generally. What tends to happen is that you will start feeling something heating up. So you'll have, like, your phone, for example, and it starts to heat up. Turn it off if that happens, like, as in not just close down the screen, turn it off, monitor it to see if it continues. If it starts to buckle, like if it starts to deform in any way or emit any kind of smoke or anything, tell your cabin crew immediately.
Yeah. And there's protocols in place when that does happen. But as Petter said, know the symptoms. And the classic one for lithium batteries, as you were saying, kind of buckling or bulging. It will start to like swell, look like it's swelling up, particularly things like power banks. My son's got a radio controlled car, and these electric radio controlled cars now have got so much power in them. It's got a motor the size of a Coke can and these massive lithium batteries. But one of them, because he crashes it a lot because it's like 50 mile an hour, but he crashes it a lot, and he must have landed. It came out, battery flew out, and one of the batteries, it looked like a thick bar of chocolate, but where on the top of it now, it started to bulge, and I'm like, ooh, no, that needs to. We're not charging that anymore. That needs to go, and we need to get a new one. So if you do see any kind of bulging, cracking, any strange noises from it, a lot of heat, you've got to let someone know if you're on board an aircraft.
Super important. And that leads me to the next point that I want to make. And that is, do not put these things in your checked-in luggage.
No.
There is information about this. Every airline will tell you not to do this, but you might forget it. Like you might want to put your laptop in your checked-in bag or something like that. Like if you have stuff with lithium batteries in them, carry them on your person. I wouldn't even want you to put it up in the overhead bin. I would have it on your person if you can, or close by, so that you can keep a look at it and keep track on it. Yeah. And they will ask you, most people will ask, like, do you have any electronics in here? Right? There's a reason they ask you that. This wasn't actually a safety bulletin. This was a safety alert from the FAA that they put out. And the difference is that the safety alert goes out to normal people as well. The bulletins would go out to flight crews and cabin crews and airlines, but the safety alert is something like the FAA has decided that this is super, super important, super dangerous. Everyone out there needs to know about it. And CNN picked up this, so it's in the news now, probably a week ago when you listen to this. And they said that only in August in the US, there was 50 incidents in aircraft with lithium batteries. That's
frightening.
That's 50 incidents in one country in 1 month. And I just want people to understand it. And I don't want to scare anyone. I just want people to be vigilant when it comes to this, because these are practically little potential incendiary devices. And I have seen what happens in a flashover. A flashover is a fire that has, when you mix. So when you have a fire in a room, let's say that you're sitting now in your living room and you're listening to this or whatever, and you put a fire in a corner, then you see what people think about when they think about fire, which are, it's localized. You have little flames that's licking up the sides of the wall, maybe a little bit of charring, a little bit of black smoke that's coming out of it, but it's localized. It's a fire, and you can point at it. Look at the fire. Now, what happens is that fire heats up its surrounding material, and that now starts to give off fumes. Black fumes they tend to be. Those black fumes, they tend to become hot, they go up into the roof, and then they start coming down. So that black smoke is slowly coming down until it reaches the fire itself. So it goes all the way down, fills up. When you're inside of that black smoke, first of all, it's lethal. Like you can take a couple of breaths of that and then you're going to lose consciousness. So that is not good. But what happens next is that the mixture between oxygen, fuel, which is the black smoke. The black smoke is black because it's full of potential fuel, right? And the fire, the mixture of that becomes bright. And at a certain point, it ignites. And when it ignites, it sounds like a dog barking. It's like, woof. And at that point, everything burns. And I think I've told this story before. When I was a firefighter, we were in full firefighting gear, and we sat inside of a container that we had put plywood inside of. And we watched the whole thing happen, from the small fire in the corner until the flashover. And we sat inside of that. And when the flashover came, it went up to hundreds of degrees within a couple of seconds, which meant that our firefighting gear started melting and we had to get out. But before we got out, I saw this amazing show, which is the fire when the fire is not localized, which you're inside of the flame. And the flame, it comes from nowhere. It's black, and then all of a sudden you have a flame appearing, and it sucks together, and another one, appears, like a light show. But when that happens, it basically melts everything, right? And it starts to burn everything, including metal.
Yeah.
So
And the thing, yeah. It's, as I said, and the reason that's bad, obviously it's bad for us in the cabin, but if this is happening down in the cargo hold, because these things are not being monitored, someone puts a laptop in there or a load of batteries they shouldn't do, when they get banged or they have a thermal runaway, they start smoking now. When they burn, as Petter said before, they've got so much energy in them. When they burn, they're like fireworks. They properly go, which means everything around them now is going to start igniting. The problem now is, statistically, from a fire breaking out to the aircraft breaking up is about 17 minutes.
yep.
That's how long you have. So if you're up at flight level fantastic, up at flight level, 40,000 feet, and suddenly this happens in a cargo hold. Cargo holds are designed to contain fire. They do have extinguishers in there and so on, but they're not that great for lithium batteries because of the intensity of the burn. So it's so important that everybody understands the risks involved here. But my worry with this, Petter, is it assumes a good bit of common sense in that people will listen to this.
Yeah, and common sense, unfortunately, is not that common.
Well, it's not. And I think if you look at people evacuating with bags, we covered this, didn't we, in a previous one not long ago. They're risking their own lives. There's no logic to it. They're risking their own lives, but worse still, potentially, they're risking the lives of the people that they're holding up, which are the ones that often pay the price. So you'd kind of hope that people would look at it when they read this in the news. They go, "Oh yeah, I'm not gonna make sure I've got everything on my person. I'm going to be aware of this. If I drop my phone, I'm not going to put my chair back or recline so it doesn't crush it." And people are aware of that. But history tells us that maybe people won't think like that.
No, but this is where we come in, right? This is where we who are facing a lot of people on social media have a duty now to tell. I've already done at least one video on Mentor now a while back where I talked about this. I'm going to do another one as a reaction to this safety alert because I feel that it's public health. We need to do that, and I think it goes a long way for people just to understand the danger. If people are just aware that lithium batteries are potentially dangerous and that you should take them with you on your person, that's not too much to ask for because most people have their devices for a reason. They want to watch a video or they have the laptop because they're going to be working with it. So they will by default take it into the cabin. And if they just know a little bit more, maybe they will just monitor for this a little bit more because we have drills for this. As with everything in the airline business, when we see a threat appearing, we develop a drill for it. For example, we have iPads as electronic flight bags in the cockpit, right? As soon as that happened, as soon as we started using them, all of a sudden there was a new non-normal checklist that involved the iPad and a procedure that said, okay, if this happens, if your iPad starts to act this way, you do the following. And the cabin crew, who are the real heroes here, they have drills for this. This is why you need to, as soon as you even think that this is about to happen, you have to tell the cabin crew. Because they will then take your device, they will put it generally into a metal box. So there's no more things that can burn because obviously the problem is not really your thing burning. The problem is that your thing will ignite other things.
Yeah.
So they will put it into a metal box and then they will pour water on it. And I think they will continue pouring water until it's basically, used up all of its energy.
Yeah, it just needs to be cooled down. But I can already see the comments of people. I think the vast majority of people will be sensible, but I can already see the comments of people going, "No, I've got my camera and my laptop. There's no way I'm carrying all that around with me. That's going in the hold." I know people will still do that because I've seen the comments when people were talking about taking bags with them.
So I think that there are there might be pieces that you can put in the hold, providing that they are inside of their machine so that they're protected. Basically, I'm not sure exactly what the rules are there, but it's basically what we have to convey here is that it's up to you. You as a passenger, you are the one that's responsible for making sure that your stuff that you're carrying is complying with the rules. So if you're not sure, then you bring it with you, right?
And a great example of that is people that might have an electric mobility aid, an electric scooter. They're now often powered by these big kind of lithium batteries. So we can carry those, but the batteries have to be removed from the device. They have to be carried in the cabin, and any terminals need to be insulated so that they can't, have any short circuits. But there's very specific procedures. What we don't want are these lithium batteries that we don't know about unmonitored inside of a hold.
Yeah, and there are also rules for how much you're allowed to carry.
Yeah.
So you can look at that on your. If you go to the website of the airline that you're going to be traveling with, they will have this stipulated. Like you are allowed to carry on your person a lithium battery, a spare battery that is this big. You cannot take something that's bigger than that. So there are rules for this.
Yeah.
But again, it will take a bit of work. And most people are not willing to do that work. But I'm just telling everyone out there that the one thing that you can do is making sure that you keep track of your own stuff. The second thing that you can do is make sure that you buy only quality stuff to begin with, so that you don't, you're not in the risk of using substandard things that have not been properly tested. And next thing you do, even if all those things fail, well, hopefully all of those things do not fail. But if something does happen, that you inform the cabin crew immediately, because they do have drills to follow, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put a link to this safety alert down in the description below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to go in and read it. But it basically says common sense things like how to store your lithium battery if you're not using it. Put tape around it, insulate it in a plastic bag, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the things that we've already said.
And I think it's lithium batteries are very well understood in the hobby world, because since my son's got this big radio controlled car, it's a whole world of tech out there. But the hobbyists, they're very aware of the dangers of lithium batteries. Like when you buy the battery, you're really recommended that you buy a charging bag, which is this fireproof bag that you charge them in. So that if it suddenly ignites during charging, it's not going to burn your house down. It's going to be contained in something that's not going to burn, even at that high temperature. But it's just getting that mentality, I think, out into everybody, in everybody's mind.
Because the cat is out of the bag here. We are going to see these devices everywhere for as long as I see, for the foreseeable future, basically. So now it's just about maintaining or containing the risk, really. And that goes out through what we're doing now. Information, awareness, and following rules, basically.
Yeah, and batteries are only getting more powerful. If you look at, they've just announced a new iPhone 17, and one of the things they always boast is better battery life, isn't it? It's now, 39 hours of video playback, whatever it is. It's just, but it's
someone has been looking at the Apple website very recently, yeah?
Maybe it was my kids telling me they want one, and they're trying to sell it to me. That was probably more like, Daddy, got this. Yeah.
Surprisingly into the technical details of the iPhone 17.
I know all about them. I know all about them. Not that I wanted to know all about them, but I do.
So do you want the slim version, the Air?
No, it does nothing. That's going to bend, and it's got the worst tech in it. It seems to me. It's just a phone that looks different.
It looks beautiful, but the battery kills it for me. Like I can't. Whenever my iPhone stops being charged for the whole day, with normal use, it's dead to me. Right. Yeah. So I would never buy something to start with that needs a battery pack in order to survive the day.
No, it looks amazing.
It looks amazing. I don't know if that's the case. And also the heat, I'm a little bit worried about the heat on that thing, because it definitely does not have any of the features that reduces the heat in the bigger models.
No.
So no. I tend to go for the Pro, and I tend to skip one generation. So I have the 15 Pro.
Okay, so you're due.
I'm due. I mean, I love this thing. And my wife, she buys them, and then she puts this huge, bulky protector around it so that it doesn't get a scratch.
Yeah.
I can't do that, because this is a work of art. Like, it's beautiful piece of tech.
Yeah.
This is Sandra, by the way. And and so I never put any protection on mine. And this thing is the first iPhone I've had for a couple of years. It had no scratches. I have it in my pocket all the time, every single day. No scratches, nothing. This is impressive.
You're ahead of me, because I didn't have it in a case, and I dropped mine quite spectacularly, which is why you couldn't get hold of me a couple of weeks ago. So now my new one, I've got a case.
Well,
you live and learn.
You live and learn, I guess. So I haven't lived or learned that much yet. But having said that, let's go in for some questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, just put in a comment, leave a like and a subscription if you do. It really helps. So here are some questions that have come through via YouTube. When you land your last flight of the day, how long roughly is it before you're actually off the plane and clocking out? Or the pilot equivalent of clocking out, of course. Regards, David.
Ah,
This is one of the best things of being a pilot, really.
yeah.
I don't know, how long does it take for you?
However long it takes to get the passengers off and do the shutdown checklist. So pretty, I mean, what, 10 minutes, 15 minutes from opening doors?
Yeah, something like that. Like we will shut down really quickly, and then we will do the shutdown checklist, and making sure everything is done, and then we have to wait to all of the passengers being off, the cabin crew ready to go, and then we have to do the last bit, which is to secure. If there's not another crew that's taking over the aircraft, then we can just go directly. But if it's last flight of the night, we have to secure it, which means we're basically killing all of the systems down. We possibly also have to go out, close the doors, and even retract the steps for safety and security. But if it's just in the middle of the day, so let's see, like Ben has been working in earliest now, lucky you. Then there tends to be another crew waiting. So in that case, it's just shutdown checklist. Could even be a transit shutdown if you see that the crew is waiting. So you don't need to do the full one. And then you just, tip your hat at the last passengers and you go.
See ya. And that it is nice because it's one of those few jobs, I think, where you can really leave your work at work. Generally speaking, most of the time,
I don't think people really understand the benefit of that. Now, I screwed it up because I just took on more responsibility. So I became a trainer, and then I became a manager as well, and then I became a YouTuber, which meant that I never left work eventually. But I remember that when you're just a normal line pilot, you shut down that aircraft, and now you are off, as in truly and utterly off. There's no reports hanging over your head. There's no like, oh, I have these KPIs that I need to work against. No, this is you off until the roster starts again next in 3 or 4 days' time.
Yeah, that's worth its weight in gold, isn't it?
It's very in today's world is very underestimated, I think.
Yeah. And Navin's just come through golden. captains@mentorpilot.com is the email address.
Captains, so we're talking plural, captains@mentorpilot.com. That's the email address. So if you have questions, send them in directly there, and we will take as many as we can. We might even dedicate a whole episode to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so David, I hope that answers your question. Next one. Is it true that during an anticipated crash or emergency landing of an airliner, that passengers are told to put their head down and brace against the back of the seat in front of them? If so, when having your head bent down and pressed against the hard surface of the seat in front of you on impact, wouldn't that cause immediate and severe head and neck injury and possibly death? How is it keeping us safe during an emergency or crash landing in bracing against a hard surface with our head? Keep doing the work you're doing. That's from Deborah. This smells conspiracy theory a long way. I've heard about this conspiracy theory that is braced. Someone many years ago said that the brace position was there to kill as many as possible to avoid insurance claims. So this is an old, horrible and incredibly faulty, as most of them are, conspiracy theory that is the basis to this, which has been distilled down to an honest question that Deborah is asking. So, no. The brace position started coming, was it back in the 70s or 80s that they started to develop this as like, what is the best position to hold in order to minimize damage to the vital organs, right? The vital organs being your brain and basically your torso and down, like all of the organs that you have, your heart, your lungs, and this. And after having tested this, multiple different versions, the brace position that we have today, which differs a little bit depending on where you're sitting in an aircraft, but it's generally like head down, the hands towards your ankles, holding your ankles. That gives the smallest impact surface for flying debris, and it creates a safety zone around the most important part of your body. The reason we know that it is like that is because when it started coming out, remember the Kegworth accident, right? This happened in East Midlands, or close to East Midlands Airport. In that was actually the first use case because some of the passengers knew about the brace position and some did not. So before the crash, there was a little bit of anticipation. The cabin crew gave them a little bit of like, okay, brace yourself or something like that, something similar. And some of the passengers knew what it meant. So we had a few people that braced and a lot of people who didn't, which meant that now they had a test case that they could go in like, okay, so what happened to the people that braced and what happened to the people who didn't brace? And the fact was that those who braced was significantly less injured than the ones who didn't.
Yeah. And you got to remember that with any kind of crash, whenever you're in something that has a crash, there's 3 impacts, and it's the last one that would kill you. And obviously, the first impact is whatever you're in hitting something, whether it's an aircraft hitting the ground, a car hitting a tree, whatever it might be. That's the first one. The second one is you impacting something inside of that object, the seat in front, the steering wheel. And the deadly one is then your organs inside your head hitting the inside of you. That's the one that kills you. So what crash, whether it's a car, an aircraft, protection needs to involve is minimizing your impact with what's inside. So if your head is now if you're now bent down and your head is resting against that seat in front, it's not going to impact it in the same sense that if you're standing upright and you're going to kind of headbutt this thing. It's already touching it. And remember, when you start coming to an abrupt stop, you're all kind of moving together. So yes, you're pushing into that seat in front, but then that seat is also moving forward with the person in front of that. So it's more of a gradual compression as opposed to a big impact, which stops these fatal injuries from occurring.
Yeah. So the quick answer to your question, Deborah, is no. It will not cause more damage. You might still hurt yourself. There's no question about that. Like, there's no guarantee here. But the brace position has been scientifically proven and tested out to minimize the risk of you dying.
For sure. And the other thing as well is, remember, things such as overhead bins will open, heavy objects will be flying around. If your head's below seat level, which it will be in the brace position, you're minimizing your risk of being hit by something.
Exactly. So that's the answer to that. I'm glad that question came up. And actually, to be honest, if you guys are sitting out there and you've heard some outlandish kind of conspiracy theory and you want the real and honest answer to it, then please send that in. Like, because there's nothing I love more than debunking these things. They are irritating because they take up a lot of time, and sometimes the people who ask the question does not want to hear the answer. That's probably the worst when I come up against flat earthers, for example, that no matter what you say, either they're just going to say that, well, you're in on it, and then that's it. So there's no real point in spending time. But I feel that with this question that Deborah is asking, she's probably heard this somewhere, and she's really wondering, is this true? And the answer to that, no, it's not true.
No. But good question.
Yeah, it's a very good question. All right, next one. Hello, captains. I like that. Hello, captains. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the process of upgrading to captain. From your perspective, what are the most important changes required in terms of mindset, skills, and behavior? What qualities or habits make the biggest difference in successfully stepping into the left seat? Thank you, Alex.
Alex, we could be here for about 15 days and we wouldn't cover that. But
we've already talked about it today.
We have. We have. Yeah, right at the beginning. It's good. And Go on. Do you want to summarize it, or do you want me to come up with a?
I mean, you are the active training captain, so you go for it.
Sure. So it's like you said, it's a mindset thing. So we know it's not so much about flying the airplane anymore. We know that when they get to the point of becoming a captain, they can fly the airplane well. They wouldn't be in that position ready to become a captain if they couldn't. So that's kind of a given now. As a captain, you go into more of a managerial role. So the leadership and the ability to lead and delegate goes right up to the very front, and the ability to see the big picture, to be able to prioritize tasks when you're seeing multiple things coming your way, and just having the ability to slow things down is going to be key into setting you up for success. Because if you don't have that ability to prioritize, to slow things down, and to delegate and to lead, you're never going to be a captain.
No. And I should say as well, like as we kind of alluded to in the beginning of this podcast, that you are going to be a good captain, but a slightly different good captain in different parts of your career. So in the beginning, like we have okay, let me reverse back. You have two types of decision-making models, right? You have a time available, so long time decision-making, and short-time decision-making. Now, long-term decision-making is pretty much what Ben just described. Like you need to be able to take information in, you need to be able to sort things out in your head together with your crew, delegate, you need to come up with a solution to it and go forward and evaluate, PIOC, if you've been following Mentor Pilot. Short-term decision-making, it's dependent on your skills, your knowledge, your experience. That's when you're faced with something like this. And you need to respond to it immediately. A sudden engine failure, for example. So when you're a new captain, you are going to have very little experience as a captain, which means that you need to compensate that with a lot of knowledge. This is why we are expecting people that comes into the command upgrade to be really well read up on their technical skills, their performance, their basically all of the ATPL theory that they have. You need to be really well read up. But if you go to a captain that's been a captain for 15, 20 years and you start asking ATPL questions, you're probably not going to be that impressed.
No.
But that's because in those 15 years, this person have built up their experience level. So they are now compensating what they've forgotten from their ATPL theories, really, really minute knowledge with really valuable experience. So we are expecting someone who goes into the command upgrade training to be much more knowledgeable than ourselves. Like literally, I should be able to ask them to quote certain parts of Ops Manual Part A. While I might not be able to do that exactly myself, but I definitely know the answer.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think that's a good summary. It's a big topic, and I love talking about it. But it's a podcast series on its own. That one.
For sure. But listen, we are up to 1 hour and 2 minutes. As always, I mean, I just love talking to you, Ben. These things. Sometimes we go into these podcasts and you don't really feel it. Like we don't have a subject to talk about. What are we going to talk about? But we always end up after an hour talking more fired up than we were at the beginning.
It's true. And we have to wrap it up now. We're like, I'm just getting going.
Yeah. No, I can continue forever. Like you just continue with something, a new subject. If there was another question, we only got 3 questions from Spiros here, but if there was another question coming up now, we would be able to continue with that for 15 minutes if we needed to.
Absolutely.
So if you want another 15 minutes, then you have to send in your questions, and you do that at captains@mentorpilot.com.
Yes.
And listen to us on Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcast, or on YouTube. And if you do watch it on YouTube, please leave a like and a comment. We want as many people as possible to watch and follow this podcast, because I'm actually really proud of it.
I think we're doing a good job. It's good to get it out there. And it's a great way of mixing with everybody else out there and sharing what we all love. So It's a win-win.
And it's like you don't get less scripted than this.
This is raw.
There's literally one paper in front of me with the stuff that we should be discussing. That's it.
Yep.
Cool.
That's it.
And with that, I just want to thank everyone for watching, listening, and being here together with us. We'll see you next week, and have a good one, Ben. Fly safe.
Yeah. And you too. Have a good one, everyone. See you next week. Take care.
Ciao.